Namaskar and welcome to the second episode of Bhaks.com digital book launch series, along with our Selfie with the Book campaign. This series is dedicated to launching books that do not merely inform but preserve memory, responsibility, and national consciousness. Today, we present a book that speaks not in slogans, not in spectacle, but in the silences that remain after tragedy. Before we begin the launch, let me first introduce our esteemed authors. Dr. Roshni Sen Gupta and Dr. Chandni Sen Gupta. Dr. Roshni Sen Gupta is faculty various Indian and national international universities. She has been professor of politics and media, including IIM University Gurugram and Erasmus Mundus IBIES postdoctoral fellowship. And she was previously with Amity University, Haryana as well. She is PhD and MPhil in political studies from Jawaharlal Nehru University, and her publication we are soon going to talk is Operation Sindoor. And Dr. Chandni Sen Gupta, she is a historian, cultural analyst, and author. She is PhD in history from Indira Gandhi National Open University, Masters in history from University of Delhi, and Bachelor from Lady Shri Ram College, Delhi. She is Assistant Professor, Department of History, Sri Aurobindo College, University of Delhi, and former Assistant Professor at Amity University, Haryana. She is a historian, cultural commentator, and writer. And Dr. Chandni has written many books: Hindu Heroes of Medieval Bharat, Reclaiming Hindu Temples, Another Time, Another Place in 2021, and her latest book is Operation Sindoor. So together we invite Dr. Roshni Sen Gupta and Dr. Chandni Sen Gupta to launch important book Operation Sindoor. I welcome Dr. Roshni Sen Gupta and I welcome Dr. Chandni Sen Gupta. Let's launch the book Operation Sindoor, which has been published by Suruchi Publication. So I would start with the cover of the book, ma'am. So the cover of the book is black and white with Barmelon Sindoor as a tika on this. So I would like to know the design theory of this cover page. Who designed it? How it came up?
So I'd like to take that question. Interestingly, I designed the cover of the book, and it was a very simple platform. I used Canva to design the cover, and we didn't want to make it very complicated. We didn't from the very beginning. We didn't want to have too many elements, and we just wanted to for the cover to convey the message. So we took the logo and we played around it, and Operation Sindoor already a logo was in place. So we just took the logo and we thought that we'll keep it simple as possible. It should convey the message, and the message of the message could be conveyed in various ways. So the a book cover could have battle tanks and fighter jets and all of that, to convey that there was a military engagement at that time that took place. But we wanted to keep it as simple as possible. So the symbolism was important, and the use of vermilion, which was already there on the logo. So we took it from the government authorized websites, and we played around it. And the platform for creating the cover was Canva, as I said. And this is something that we conceptualized one fine morning. We just thought about how do we design the cover, and then we came up with this. We had a couple of other options in mind, but then we stuck to this, and we wanted to keep it as simple as possible.
And this simplicity is speaking a lot.
Thank you.
But the question is ki, every Bharati knows what is Operation Sindoor and what happened. But you have mixed two things: Operation Sindoor, and then you have a subtitle India's News. So if a reader starts or sees the cover page, what you thought that what kind of feeling he will have or he should have, and where have you taken this book? Is this about the Operation Sindoor or is this a post Operation Sindoor?
It is about Operation Sindoor, of course. I mean, there are four chapters that we have about the operation itself, about what happened on those 3.5 days when the operation was launched, and how did everything span out militarily. Of course, we have given a lot of information about that. But the book is also about the events that led up to Operation Sindoor. So, what happened in Pahalgam? So, we are contextualizing the events that shaped the operation. So, what happened in Pahalgam? So, the first chapter is about what happened in Pahalgam. Then we're talking about Pakistan, the ideology, the what basically runs that state, the military nexus that runs that state. We have tried to contextualize Kashmir. Then we have looked at the diplomatic measures that were taken post Pahalgam. So that is also something that we have discussed in one of the chapters. And of course, we have dealt with those 3.5 days of the operation itself, how we inflicted a lot of injury on Pakistan. So that is something that is, of course, the core of the book. Apart from that, we've also looked at two very important aspects, which is the first being the narrative war. How we did our part as far as the narrative is concerned, because Pakistan was out there, their entire state machinery was trying to put out all kinds of information on the media, particularly in Western media, about what is happening. But we also tried to do our bit, and it might not have been enough at that point, but we did our bit. And another very critical aspect that we have tried to look at is the new normal. So when Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke about the fact that this is going to be our strategy to deal with terrorism. So that became India's new normal. So we no longer follow a passive strategy from after Uri, after Balakot, and then what we saw with Operation Sindoor was a ramped up approach. So this became this this entire concept of the new normal was something that we wanted to also highlight in our book.
So I think there are two very intriguing aspects of this book, which I think will attract readers. First is you are explaining the whole operation system, the what happened in 3.5 days, what happened in Pahalgam, and then you are also explaining the new normal, means the ideology of the present government and their synchronization with the military system. So I think that also would be very interesting to understand ki what is now new normal. This is second time word coming after COVID, that initially people thought that after COVID it's a new normal. Now Operation Sindoor, there is a new normal within the system. And I hope there would be lot of things, lot of such initiatives which will boost our morale as well. We have seen in many years that there was very much restraint from the political side whenever any attack happened. So I think if you are explaining this, so that will be more interesting part to read, the new normal part. If I ask what is the central theme or one idea if which comes from this book, what it should be?
So, you asked about the central premise or the central theme of the book. So, it is on Operation Sindoor, but like my co-author just said, it takes you on a little bit of a journey. It takes you into the history of the subcontinent, primarily from 1947, in the context of two very specific aspects. One, Kashmir, and two, Pakistan, which are interrelated. So when you read the book, you see how closely related the two aspects are, starting from the first incursion of the of the Pathan tribesmen. That was the first war, 1947, and then of course subsequent wars, the 1999 Kargil incursions and things like that. Then of course the proxy war that Pakistan has been waging against India, bleeding India with 1,000 cuts. Now everybody who's watched Durandar will know that bleeding India with 1,000 cuts is Pakistan's stated policy. Now the problem is that a lot of us probably did not know this. Um, before the film came out. So it's a tragedy that we didn't know about it. It wasn't common knowledge. So what this book tries to do is place the operation and the Pahalgam terrorist attack in the context of the proxy war that Pakistan has been waging against India, because they cannot fight a conventional war with us, right? And it also gives a very succinct historical overview, like my co-author just said, of the evolving ideology of the military, quasi military state of Pakistan. Why do I call it quasi military state? I call it quasi military state because there is the veneer of a political class, of a democracy, but there is no democracy, right? So there has never been any democracy in Pakistan. So it never could take roots because the military was always at its tail. So it never allowed, from Ayub Khan, it never allowed democracy to take root. Also, the state itself was established on the ideology of fear, the fear of the Indian, the fear of the Hindu, right? So, a state which is established on the ideology of fear lives by fear of the Hindu, which primarily then leads it to this edict of waging war against India by proxy means, because you cannot fight. They have realized in the several wars that they have fought with us, that they cannot fight a conventional war and win. They cannot win a proxy war either, but it's difficult for them to understand that. So they live in a bit of a, sort of a delusional state, where they are fighting a moral war with the Hindu. And this is the Islamic jihadist fund, idea of fighting a moral war, and so on and so forth. So anyway, so we are contextualizing that aspect of what happened in Pahalgam, the fact that people were asked their faith and then gunned down in cold blood. It comes from somewhere, it comes from a radical Islamist ideological state. What happened after? Why new normal? Because because Operation Sindoor and Pahalgam actually called Pakistan's bluff on the state actors and non-state actors. So they've been going everywhere across the world and saying that non-state actors are participating in terrorist activities in India, and we don't have anything to do with it. So the Pakistani state justifies itself by saying that we are not behind it. So what Operation Sindoor did was it very clearly established that there is no distinction between state actors and non-state actors. It is the Pakistani state itself is a radical Islamist state which is promoting jihad and holy war, which they call holy war, against the Hindu, infidel Hindu, right? So that aspect, that fact was very clearly established. The whole world saw it. They might not acknowledge it, but they saw it, right? The pictures of military establishment mourning the deaths of the terrorists that we killed during Operation Sindoor in Muridke and Bahawalpur. Everybody saw it, but of course, the world media narrative does not acknowledge the fact that there is a distinction between state actors, non-state actors, but it's now very clearly established. So the book takes that complete arc and gives you leads up to what happened in Pahalgam and then Operation Sindoor. And of course, it then talks about how the new normal has broken a lot of stereotypes. It has broken a lot of myths. So, one of the myths that we also talk about is the Pakistani liberal. There is also constituency in India which is very favorable towards the Aman Ki Asha initiatives towards Pakistan, and things like that. So what we also try to do in the book is expose, in whatever limited way that we can, expose the existence of a Pakistani liberal class. Because the moment a lot of the Pakistani liberals that you see on YouTube, and there is a largish market for these people in India. People did watch them and engage with them, and the online YouTubers and journalists and independent journalists and so on and so forth. But if you look at their backgrounds, a lot of them actually come from military families, or they have some military connections, or they are ISI plants. Because they are obviously looking at engagement from India, and therefore doing it in a very subtle way, so propaganda and things like that. But what we see, you scratch the surface of the general Pakistani intellectual, or the general Pakistani liberal, and you'll find the rabid Islamism tumbling out of them, right? Then there will be things like, you are the oppressor in Kashmir, you are the oppressor, you are the caste oppressor, you are the majoritarian state, you are the regional hegemon. So all of these, terms that they use, for that they look at India with, and that they have been raised with, this is what they have been raised with. So this hate is internalized. So once you scratch the surface, this internalized hate comes out. So in one of the interesting sections, which our readers might find very interesting, we sort of break down the myth of the Pakistani liberal. So the book not just focuses on Operation Sindoor itself, but it also, looks at a lot of these conceptual ideas, and in a very simple way. What we try to do is to reach out to as many readers as possible through the book, and make it more accessible. So of course it's heavily researched. It's also written in a in a simple way, so that people would read it, understand it, and internalize it, not just, get bored after the first 10 pages and leave it.
Yeah. So now, as you have already mentioned Dhurandhar, so we cannot escape, discussing about Dhurandhar also, because I also watched it, and Indian public internationally, people are crazy, and they get different spirit. Now, one thing you have mentioned, that you have started from 1945. So, can we say that your book Operation Sindoor is a bigger umbrella of Dhurandhar, whatever has been mentioned in Dhurandhar movie? Because it starts from the Kandahar, but you are saying that we started from 1945. So you are going to maybe clear more picture of the ideology, the system, the state Pakistan, we say.
I will just start answering the question and then give it over to my co-author. Yes, the story starts from 1947, the first war, the first incursion, the first time Pakistan showed aggression, mainly in the context of Kashmir, and they have not stopped since. So Dhurandhar picked up certain events. Of course, it picked up the more dramatic events. Obviously, it's a fictional account which is based on real stories. um, of course, in our book, we don't mention we are not talking about the unknown gunman. So if people are interested in the unknown gunman, there are other books that they should read. But as far as the larger context of it, as far as understanding the larger context of what Durandar shows is concerned, the book traces the trajectory of subcontinental history from 1947 up until the present times. So it looks at all of these events that have happened. Although we don't go very deep into 2611, we don't go very deep into Kandahar, but it does mention it because these are very landmark events. And these are landmark events primarily because it shows, it sort of brought to the fore the regularity with which Pakistan has been maintaining this aggressive posture towards India, inflicting terrorist violence against us, and for over a long period of time, India being a passive observer and not doing anything much except exchanging dossiers, right? In fact, in Kandahar, we even acceded to their demands, and went and returned Maulana Masood Azhar to them. And then what happened, along with the other guy who finally ultimately was involved in the beheading of Daniel Pearl. So these are, of course, the film picks these events because these are dramatic events. um, and of course the book doesn't talk about the internal, the gangster violence in Karachi and so on. No. The book talks about Pakistan's ideology, the state ideology of Pakistan towards India in that context. So if somebody wants to understand what the real story is, what the larger story is, what the larger context is, then this is the right book to read.
So also the fact that we've tried to deal with the larger ideology, espoused by Pakistan from 1947 onwards. They have a one-point agenda of
Hmm.
inflicting grievous injury to us, because their hate towards the Hindus is something that they are very clear about. We might go and shake hands with them and try to do Aman Ki Asha and all of that, and take the bus trip to Lahore, which of course Vajpayee ji did during his tenure. And what did we get back? We got Kargil.
Hmm.
So they are very clear in their mind. They don't want to have any peace with us. They have an agenda, and because they were created on the basis of hate, right? So we have an ideology. Our ideology is very different. We want to live in peace with all our neighbors. We have always given this and believed in this philosophy of Vasudev Kutumbakam, and we are generally peace loving people. But
Yeah.
Pakistanis are not like that. So their agenda is very clear. So we mentioned that. We mentioned the fact that from the very beginning, from 1947 onwards, in this chapter that we have on Pakistan, uh, they have forwarded or pushed this agenda of hate towards the Hindus. Their textbooks do that. Their people in the establishment obviously the ones who are at the helm of affairs. They push this narrative. Everybody, their media does it all the time. Their TV serials do it. Their movies do it. So they've been pushing this agenda: hate the Hindu. And because the state itself is primarily based on this hatred. They asked for a partition of our country because of that, because of the fact that they consider themselves to be distinct and perhaps superior to us. So which is why this hatred is something that is inherent in them. And so in that chapter on Pakistan, we've also looked at how different military regimes that have kind of been at the helm of affairs in Pakistan, how have they looked at this, and how have they benefited from this hatred, and how they have instilled this hatred in the minds and hearts of the people through their education system, through their media, and through various other means. So that is something that we have tried to do. So look at Pakistan from uh, the correct perspective, or the way it must be looked at. So we should not look at them as people who speak the same language, or eat the same kind of food, or wear the same kind of clothes. That is the narrative that was very popular at one point in India, that they look like us, and they eat the same kind of food, they speak the same kind of language. So we've tried to debunk that myth in our book. And of course, leading up to what happens on the 7th of May, post Pahalgam. But we very clearly wanted to debunk this myth of Pakistan being somewhat similar to us. So that is also something that we have done. And interestingly, we have also looked at what Pakistan has been doing in Kashmir, and how they want to keep that issue alive. And the fact that they've been sponsoring terrorism since forever, particularly since 1947, and the history of Kashmir before that. I mean, the history of Kashmir, as we all know, Kashmir is the land of Rishi Kashyap, and it has a very vibrant and dynamic Hindu history. So we've tried to look at that. We've of course not got into the details of it, because that makes for another book. But we've tried to kind of look at it briefly, to provide some context to why did Pahalgam actually happen.
One minor point before we finish this question. If you remember, before Pahalgam, 3 days before Pahalgam, the current Chief of Defense Staff of Pakistan, General Asim Munir, had made a very um, anti-India, hate-laden speech, in which he had very clearly stated that we are different from India and we are different from the Hindus. Our ideologies are different, our lifestyles are different, etc., etc. Right. So in we kind of contextualize this class of this ruling class that now sort of governs that country in the book as well, in our chapter on Pakistan. Now we really need to understand that this class of this level of gender, I mean the military leadership that you have in Pakistan today is primarily coming from the period they were young cadets during Zia ul Haq's period time, right? These were people who were recruited at that time, and that's the period when you look at when we see the Islamization, the rapid Islamization of Pakistan's military. Not that they were not following the Islamic ideals before that, but during Zia ul Haq's period, it became rampant, rapid. In fact, in the military academies in Pakistan, Maulanas, and of course, today you have Taiba members going and giving speeches in the military academy. So today, the collusion between the terrorists and the military is absolutely, out in the open. They don't even make two bones about it anymore. But this is in that period, and during Zia's period, the um, the slogan of the Pakistan Army also changed to Iman, Taqwa, and Jihad fi Sabilillah. So jihad became or the Islamic holy war became one of the things that defined their military. It became their motto, right? So praying, doing the namaz 5 times became a ritual in military academy. So they have been trained in that way. So besides being a Maulana's son and a Hafiz Quran, which is now common knowledge about Asim Munir, the fact of the matter is that he and the other generals around him come from this period, and they have been trained in this way. So they've been trained as jihadis. Besides being Pakistani military soldiers, they are also trained as jihadis. So we really have to understand this fact. And the book tries to bring this out. The book tries to explore this and make it simply accessible to the reader, so that there is an understanding of who the hell, who are we dealing with. We should really know who we are dealing with.
Actually, before that, we saw Bengal Files, and I just recently, when it came to TV, I again watched it, and there was a dialogue between Gandhi and Jinnah. And when I heard Asim Munir, I mean, it felt like that he was saying similar dialogues which Jinnah has said. Gandhi was saying कि हम एक हैं, एक भाई हैं, and Jinnah was saying no, we are different. तुम अलग हो, तुम्हारे कपड़े अलग हैं, तुम्हारा खाना. Same dialogues. I mean, in fact, word to word, I heard from Asif Munir. It was almost same. So even before that, I mean, this ideology set by Jinnah. And very interestingly, ma'am, I just like to mention that my another podcast will come up with Dr. Sri Krishna Srivastava. He is also he researched on many Muslim poets. So he did a research lot on Allama Iqbal. And when you said Zia ul Haq, it immediately came to me, because he mentioned that Zia ul Haq, even Jinnah, they all were inspiration from Allama Iqbal. So then history goes even beyond. So just to mention, we want to understand more about book, and you have mentioned the research, and definitely when we talk about such a topic, Operation Sindhu, talking about political system in India, political system exists, doesn't exist in Pakistan, but you're talking about, then there are two state militaries. So what kind of challenges you faced when you were doing research on this? I mean, you need to understand the realities, what happened, what ministers are saying, what prime minister is saying. So what was the most challenging aspect of your research during this, and to what extent you went for researching, and if you have some interesting anecdote or your experience during this research?
So I'll take this question, and I think my co-author can then continue. So one very significant challenge that we faced while we were doing the research for this book was that everything that happened between April and May happened in very quick succession, and we had to journal everything. So that aspect of noting everything down, whatever was being said in the media, whatever was being put out in on social media, or whatever was appearing in the newspapers. So we had to note down everything with a lot of detail, because we couldn't miss out on anything. So and there was a lot of information, and in fact it was like an information war in itself. So we had to also sieve through what was the correct information, what was just propaganda that was being put out from the other side. But at the same time, we tried to look at all the facts, and we relied heavily on government sources. What was being put out on the Press Information Bureau, we relied on that from the website of various the Ministry of Defense. A lot of information we got from there, and of course open source information. So a lot of information was being put out on social media as well, but we tried to authenticate that. We tried to corroborate a lot of facts that were being put out on social media. So it's something that we tried to kind of look at it as it was happening. So from when the operation started, from there on, in fact before that, when Pahalgam happened, after that also, the kind of information that was being put out in the media, we tried to journal everything. We tried to write down everything. A lot of it was also the fact that we had it fresh in our memory. So it wasn't very challenging in that sense. Yes, we had to, look at the facts very minutely. We had to also present correct facts. So we had to kind of look at various sources. Not only rely on one particular source, but look at various sources. And of course, open source information was also something that we relied on. At the same time, we also looked at various other sources. And when we look at the some chapters in the book, we have also looked at a lot of primary and secondary material, academic material. So that is also something that we have looked at. Apart from that, newspaper reports. So it wasn't very challenging in terms of research, but yes, we had to be on point with what we are trying to present. Factually, it should be correct. So that is something that we wanted to be very sure about.
So we were looking at chronologically recording this very important event in India's contemporary history. This is the first time that we are seeing a escalated strategic response to Pakistan's aggression. um, we've seen, and why do we say escalated? We say that because in Uri we saw the surgical strikes. In Balakot we went a step ahead, went into Pakistani territory and bombed Balakot, which is in KPK. And now we again bombed inside Pakistani territory. We destroyed their terror camps. We had a list of 21. We chose the main 9 terror camps, and we destroyed them. And of course, when they did not stop and they counter aggressed, we went ahead and gave them the best possible response that we could at the time. But at the same time, the we took a very strategic decision to be calibrated in our response. So it we did not want to go in for an all out war. So there are a lot of questions asked about why did we stop, why did we not go ahead, why did we not take over territory. But that was not our intention. The intention was to give a very clear message to the Pakistani establishment that your terror is not going to be tolerated anymore. We are not passive. There is a if again, coming back to Dhurandhar, there is a very
Mhm.
interesting dialogue in that film, in the beginning of the film, where this hijacker in IC 814, Zahur Mistri, he says, Hindu badi darpok kaum hai.
Okay.
uh, so, it this is the time when we had to give this message to the Pakistani establishment कि हिंदू डरपोक कौम नहीं है, right? So that is a it's a very clear message that went out to them, that if you are if you want to choose this path, then you choose it very carefully, because we are coming for you, right? So it is just a matter of speculation how things will pan out from here, because Operation Sindoor officially has not ended. So the military preparedness is absolutely on a high level at the moment. Uh, and of course there is from the highest levels it has been announced to the prime minister, the raksha mantri and so on, have been announcing it on several platforms, that any act of aggression against India now will be treated as an act of war. We are seeing a situation of heightened, escalated preparedness, military preparedness. This is a very important moment in India's history. So the book, it was important for us to chronicle that, to record that, because 10, 15, 20 years hence, if a researcher wants to look at this period of India's history, strategic history, or political history, regional political, geopolitical history, this is an important recording, right? So the biggest contribution that this book makes is that it records these events for posterity. It records these events in a very chronological, very simple, contextual manner, so that there is understanding and there is accessibility. So we had a larger readership in mind.
So I can say that this book in written can be, research document itself. If somebody wants to, do research on war history of Bharat and Pakistan, then I think they can refer to this book. And since you are saying that it is written in very simple language, in a story format, so it will be easy to understand as well to any new researcher as well. So it's worth for knowing, it's worth for being a Bharatiya to read this book, and it's worth for every researcher also to refer this book. That's really great. Just estimated, I mean, how much time it took you to research all this document? I mean, you're talking about 47 Kabali move, this incursion till now, and now you are saying that it is still not, Operation Sindoor is over, it's still continuing. So, estimatedly, how many hours you gave for the research?
So, in fact, right after Pahalgam happened, we had thought about working on something. So we were just discussing, my co-author and I, that what should we write? Should we do a research paper? Should we do a book? How should we kind of contribute? And we were also emotionally shaken after Pahalgam. Of course, as citizens, each one of us was in a terrible state of mind at that point of time. So, and then we thought about working on a book. So a lot of the material we already had, the history of Pakistan, the history of Kashmir, a lot of that, as researchers, as a political scientist and a student of history, I think we already had a lot of material. And of course, once the operation happened, when Operation Sindoor took place on the intervening night of the 6th and 7th of May, after that, we started journaling, we started chronicling whatever was happening. And also, looking at a lot of open source information, looking at newspaper articles. So it did not take so much time because we had already collected a lot of material, honestly. And so right after, I think once there was the ceasefire and the press briefings happened. Right after that, we also got the transcript of the press briefings from PIB and other government sources. So we had all the background material in place. So after that, it was just a matter of putting pen to paper and writing it, and the background research had already been done. So we didn't take too much time, which is why we were able to get the book out in October this year. So it did not take too much time, but yes, it was challenging. As I told you, it was challenging to put all the facts together. So it's a this book is a coming together of facts, information, and analysis. So bringing everything together was a bit of a challenge, but we tried to kind of do it as soon as we could with our other academic assignments. It was a little challenging, but we managed to do it.
Actually, I forgot I'm talking to two history researchers, PhD scholars. So everything was there in mind and it just came out in a form of book. Is there anything which is left to journal in this book, or you intentionally left out कि ये जरूरी नहीं है, या maybe we will come up on this topic in another book?
There were several things that we thought of including in the book, but then while we were writing the chapter on Kashmir, for example, we wanted to write more on the Kashmiri Pandits and the Exodus. But then we realized that writing on the Kashmiri Pandits and the Exodus and the 18 now what happened in 1989-90 was not the only exodus that the Kashmiri Pandits have faced. So that is the topic of another book itself, or maybe a series of articles, or maybe an edited volume. I don't know, but it was not part. It wouldn't we wouldn't have done justice enough to what happened to the Kashmiri Pandits within the scope of this book, right? So that is one thing that we have mentioned. We have talked about it in the chapter, but it's not been explored to the extent that it should have been, because it is outside the scope, frankly, of what we were doing. Um, Also, we sort of stopped at a certain point after Operation Sindoor, maybe a couple of weeks after Operation Sindoor happened, and several reactions and everything was coming up at that time. And since the book went into publishing and editing and production, several things happened. So all that is something that, of course, we didn't have control over it, so we included as much as we could. But then it is till at least a week or so after Operation Sindoor itself, and maybe a couple of weeks after that, it records all of what happened. But like my co-author just said, this is an amalgamation. The book is the amalgamation of facts, information, and analysis. So the strong and contextualization. So the major thrust of the book, because people have information, people have social media to fall back on, people have information at the click of a button. So you and I need not give them that information that they already have access to. What we thought we had in mind as researchers and as students of politics and history and geopolitics, was that what people actually perhaps don't have is the context. So we need to give them the context of that led to Pahalgam and that led to Operation Sindoor, right? So
Yeah.
what this book primarily does is provide this context in a simplified, chronological, and very informative way. Uh, it talks about the operation, it talks about what led to the operation, but it also talks about what is the larger landscape where we need to situate this operation. So that larger landscape is what is the major thrust of and the major contribution that this book makes. Because, like I said, information, facts, and all of that is available at the click of a button. So you just Google it on your phone, and you will get whatever information you want about Operation Sindoor and what happened.
Yeah, but online they can get right or wrong both kind of informations. So books like you, which is very well researched, I mean, we can at least assure that whatever we are reading, it's a research document, is correct information. It's not a wrong information. So that is that also. I mean, while reading a book helps out to get the correct information. Now, my last question on this section is, being an author and being an avid reader, sometimes happens when you read some book, it changes you in one side of your personality or completely. And also happens sometimes when you write something, you may get changed. And obviously, you already mentioned that you wanted to contribute something towards Operation Sindoor. You wanted to do something, and then you came up with this book. So, when you completed this book, was there any change you felt? I mean, both of you, and both of you can answer. It changed you completely, or some percent within you. Something changed.
Yes, I think this writing this book has been a very it's been very cathartic. In fact, so when we saw those images of what happened in Pahalgam, it really moved us. And I think we, at that point, we decided to, write about it. And we didn't know what we were going to write, whether it's going to be a newspaper article or a book or an academic paper. What are we going to do about it? But as researchers, this is the only way we could contribute. And I really feel that, the stories of the survivors, the members of the family members of the victims, uh, who were gunned down at Baisaran Valley on the 22nd of April. That is something that, as citizens of our country, as people who as people who love this nation, um, we really wanted to write about it. And when we were reading the stories of the family members, that was something that really moved us. So this has been a cathartic experience. It's been some, I mean, we've also mentioned that in our in the preface to the book, that it's not only dedicated to the soldiers, and to the people who finally decided to launch the operation, but also to the survivors and to the family members of the victims. So that is something that, and the fact that we wanted to make sure that they don't feel left out. And if we could reach out to them through this book, I think that is that would be a great contribution. And it is dedicated to them, to the ones who lost their lives on that day, in Pahalgam, and also to the brave hearts, to the ones who defended our country, and participated in the operation, of course, to the soldiers, and of course to the government, the administration, which kind of allowed them to do what they were supposed to do. So we wanted to write about this, and of course, it was a very emotional journey for us.
So, like my co-author just said, it was more like a passion project. From the time Pahalgam happened, uh, we were just debating about what to do, what can we do as researchers, and how can we um, record this. What can we how can we were feeling so much, so how are we going to record what we are feeling? So what the book gave us an opportunity to do was to bring the different strands of several things that we already had running through our head on paper in a chronological fashion, in a very organized way. So when you read the book, you'll find that it is laid out in a manner that one thing leads to the other. Also, it allowed us to I we've been signing a lot of books since the book sort of came hit the market. And one thing we always write when we sign any of the copies is that this book is dedicated to those who safeguard our borders so that we can sit here and write books, right? So it is actually dedicated to, like my co-author said, all the victims and the survivors, their family members, and not only of those who were gunned down at Baisaran Valley on 22nd April 2025, but also all of the victims of Pakistan-sponsored terrorism, in the past. So
Hmm.
yes, IC-814 hijack, Parliament attack, 26/11, the Delhi bomb blast, the Pathankot attack, Uri, Pulwama, the 42 CRPF Jawans who lost their lives and their families. So it is dedicated to everyone who has been facing the brunt or has been bearing the brunt. In fact, the country, our sort of revered motherland, has been bearing the brunt of this sponsored terror since 1947 itself. The first incursion was a terrorist attack. It wasn't the army, it was the Pathan tribesmen who entered, right? It was, of course, followed by the Pakistani army, but the army has always been entering and conducting terrorism in India or sponsoring terrorism in India and staying at the back, sort of holding the reins, but staying at the back, right? So now, of course, all of this is out in the open, and for years, the international community did not acknowledge it. They don't want to acknowledge it even today because they have an anti-India agenda. So let me put it very bluntly.
Hmm.
These guys don't will not acknowledge the Pakistani hand behind terror in India because they don't want to. It's not that they don't know about it; they don't want to acknowledge it because there is an agenda, right? Of course, that's the subject of another book which we are thinking about. So that's probably going to happen sometime in future. But it is but the book itself is it's a we wrote it with a lot of passion, and which is, I think, why we could finish it in the short time that we did, because the whole atmosphere at the time was sort of driving us towards putting everything in order, putting everything in place, and getting the book out, so that the stories should come out, the stories, fact checked, authentic, authentic to the best of our abilities, should come out in the public domain. So that was the primary driving force, and it did change us. How did it change us? It sort of it made us this is the first time we have actually written. I mean, my co-author has written a couple of nonfiction books before this on primarily historical themes, but this is the first time I have written a purely nonfiction book which is more reader friendly. I've my earlier books have all been more academically oriented. So this sort of brings my training as a journalist also into play as a storyteller. So both of us together, the historian and the storyteller together, I think it was a great combination, and the result is what you have in the form of Operation Sindoor, the new normal.
I can see there was an emotional journey while writing the book. So now we are very close of this launch event, and the last question is about our publisher, Suruchi Publications. So, how was your experience with Suruchi Publications? How you end up with Suruchi? Did you already discuss with Suruchi that we want to write a book and publish, or you finished first, then you started looking for? Because I mean, this information is always good for those who are new authors who are writing their first book, how to connect with the publisher.
So let me take that question. I We actually finished writing the book. We were giving it finishing touches when we approached Suruchi. So our advice actually to you know uh, aspiring authors would be to at least put the first draft of the book in place before you start approaching the publishers, unless the publisher approaches you to write something. Once you have your draft in place, you're confident about the fact that you will be able to deliver as per the deadline. So when we entered into a conversation with Suruchi, we shared the initial draft with them. We shared a book proposal with them, um, and they immediately agreed. In fact, they looked at the title and they immediately agreed. I got a call back in about couple of hours, that we are going to do this book. So when can you deliver the manuscript? So we were just putting final touches to it. So it took us a week or so, a week and a half maybe, to deliver the final manuscript to Suruchi. And we also wanted to stick to a certain timeline because um, the book, we wanted the book to come out ASAP, not delayed any further than a couple of months after the actual events,
Hmm.
because otherwise the information would get dated, and then the relevance of the book would sort of wane a bit. So we really needed to get this out ASAP. But Suruchi has been a fantastic publisher in the sense that they went through all the processes with us, very closely with us in the loop. So they did not, they were working, we all, both of us and Suruchi were working together on the project. So they took our advice on, even the layout and everything. So they took our inputs on how do you want the chapters to be laid out, what do you want, how do you want the chapters to begin. So if you look at the book, each chapter begins with a chapter divider, and a lot
Hmm.
of those chapter dividers are quotes from the Bhagavad Gita or from the Arthashastra. So therefore, these all those inputs were very well received by Suruchi, and also at the end, the end product is a book that is very, it's also very portable. We didn't want to make a book which is not portable by readers, so you can carry it in your handbag. It's not very heavy, it's light. You can carry it in your handbag, you can read it at the airport, you can read it when you're traveling, and it is something that you can also sort of carry around with you, just in case you want to sort of share it with somebody or whatever. So all of those inputs were taken very well by the publisher. So I think uh, the way an aspiring author chooses or selects a publisher uh, is an important one. But as an author, my advice to aspiring writers would be to at least have a draft in place before you start approaching publishers. So I'll leave it to my co-author now.
Yes, so we, in terms of our experience with the publisher, it was a fantastic experience. I've worked with Ankur Pathak ji earlier, when he was with Garuda. So both my earlier works were published by Garuda, Reclaiming Hindu Temples and Hindu Heroes of Medieval Bharat. And I had a fantastic experience with Garuda as well. But with Suruchi, particularly for this book, it was interesting to work with a new publisher this time, and whether it was the cover. So they gave us the opportunity to design the cover ourselves. They never said that we are going to do it at our end, and so there was no. I mean, they never kind of interfered with what we wanted. So we told them that we want the chapter dividers. We'll give you the quotes for it. We'll design the cover, and they were absolutely fine with it. So it was a great experience. And as my co-author just mentioned, that the draft should be ready. So once we approve the publisher, we need to first keep the first draft in place, and then we must approach the publisher. And Suruchi, was very quick. They responded very quickly, and they were also very cooperative. So in terms of the PR, and in terms of marketing of the book, they've been very forthcoming and very cooperative.
Being an author, I mean, whatever the feedback you have given to Suruchi, it's really very comfortable to me that publishers help so much and listens too much while editing a book, because I don't have this kind of experience seriously. So I think we must go to Suruchi. So you already have mentioned that Suruchi is one of the good publisher. So if I ask you, giving them points from 0 to 10, I mean 0 is bad and the 10 is best. So how much points will you give to Suruchi Publications?
I think 8.5.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I would second that. 8.5.
Okay, that's great. So I can see there is a very good synchronization between both the authors. We are done here with the launching part, and now we are declaring about our campaign Selfie with the Book. So it is about our readers, our viewers, those all the viewers who are watching this podcast book launch. And after launching this podcast, if they buy this book and they take a selfie with the book and tag Bhaks.com and our esteemed authors, Dr. Chandani Sen Gupta and Dr. Roshni Sen Gupta, we will take their photographs, we will make a YouTube short video, and then we will release another short video, official launch of this Operation Sindoor, with all those buyers who will take a selfie with the book. So this is our campaign, Selfie with the Book, so that more readers come out, more people who read good books, great books, and they appreciate the hard work done by our esteemed authors behind this book. And every Sanatani book, every book that relates to Bharat, Indian knowledge system, they should be at every Indian home, I would say. So that's our announcement for all our readers. Now, before closing, I would it's our parampara to have last message to our youth from both the authors.
So let me start. My message to all our Bharatiya readers would be to develop Shatru Bodh, and I'm saying it in a very positive sense. Um, it is important for us to our adversary, understand the adversary, know the adversary, and get out of a passivist mindset which pushes us into believing that everyone is our friend and people really want peace. Because you people, we really need to understand that there are people out there who don't want peace with us. And as you know, it is really our it is imperative that we understand who our adversaries are. They might be internal, they might be external. um, One thing that we see a lot of Bhartiyas, Indians lacking is this idea of Shatru Bodh.
Hmm.
हमारा शत्रु कौन है उसे पहचानिए, उसके बारे में जानिए और उसको समझने की कोशिश कीजिए। ये बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है और इसी के बेसिस पे, ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ हाउ यू अंडरस्टैंड योर एडवर्सरी, you know, try and look at yourself, try and look at our society, our traditions, our systems in comparison with those of the adversary, and then you would see what we mean by trying to understand the adversary and why it is important to develop Shatrubodh.
So my message is very simple. Dharma rakshati rakshitah. Dharma protects those who protect it. This is something that, every person of this generation, uh, every quote unquote Gen Z needs to understand. And there's been a lot of talk about Gen Z and the fact that they're revolutionaries, and the fact that they can change governments and they can depose rulers and all of that. But what they really need to understand is that they have the responsibility of doing something for their country. And a lot of people from this generation, the generation that both me and my co-author teach, uh, they are just whiling away their time, I believe. They need to do a lot more for dharma, they need to do a lot more for their country, and of course they need to understand the fact that dharma will protect us and save us only if we make that effort to save it today. So that is my message to the youths.
So, from talking to you about this book, I understood that terrorism seeks to erase memory, and books like Operation Sindoor, it ensures that memory endures. Now, since your book is on the bookshelves, we have full history to read. It's just matter of buying the book, reading the book, understand the history, getting into the Shatrubodh and Swayambodh. हम क्या है ये भी जानना जरूरी है और शत्रुबोध भी जानना बहुत आवश्यक है. So I thank Dr. Roshni Sen Gupta and Dr. Chandni Sen Gupta for giving us your time, and first of all writing this book with such passion, with such great research. You have brought a document, a book. I mean, I would not say it's a book, it's a document which will survive for years and years, which will keep our memories afresh from this incidents, what happened, and also from 1947. Thank you, Dr. Roshni Sen Gupta and Dr. Chandni Sen Gupta, for coming to our podcast and writing to this book. And I request our viewers to support us and also read this book, buy this book, and be part of this Indian system. What we have started by launching the digital book campaign. To our viewers, support serious writing, support responsible scholarships, and keep engaging with works that strengthen national awareness with dignity. Namaskar, Jai Bharat, Jai Hind.